patiently waiting via Zoom from likely somewhere in Pleasant Ridge, now with a big smile on his face as we put him on the screen, is Kurt Metzger, the mayor of Pleasant Ridge and a former Census Bureau employee. Mayor Metzger, thank you very much for joining us today in the MegaCast.
Good morning. It's a pleasure. Pleasure to be here.
Well, good to have you. So we always ask, we see all these great images from Zoom where people are at home. Tell us where you're at, what room you're in, how's everything going at the Metzger House?
The Metzger House is great. I mean, it's just my wife and myself. And we have been basically staying away from everything, at least all stores and everything since early March.
So you haven't even gone to the store?
No, we have not gone to the store. We have relied on Instacart and InstaKids.
Okay.
We have a son who lives in Oak Park with his family and a daughter who lives in Beverly Hills with her family. And they quarantined for quite a while. In the midst of all this, I know you were talking to Henry Ford. Our daughter-in-law had a baby on April the 6th. So at Providence, sorry. Or no, I'm sorry. It was at Beaumont.
Beaumont, okay.
And everything went well, but everybody stayed pretty much isolated. And then about 2 weeks ago, we decided we could get together as family. So that's all we've been doing is only family gatherings.
Well, that's remarkable because I have being an essential media person, I've been out a little bit, not a lot less than normal, but I have been coming into the studio. We've got 3, sometimes 4 people here, so I have been coming in, but you've not left your house. I mean, other than
right.
I mean, you've been landlocked for 2 months.
And loving every minute of it.
You are. So tell me. I mean, seriously, are you? I mean, that you could tell me the truth, just between you, me, and thousands of other people listening and watching.
Yeah. No, I mean, we the one thing that we did miss was being with our grandkids and our children, and now that we've been able to do that, we walk around Pleasant Ridge. It's not a very long walk. And we see a lot of our neighbors at a distance, and we wave, and we've done some parades, and we've done some other kinds of things. So we don't feel the least bit hampered. I don't like shopping, and so it keeps me away. I have no desire to go to any stores. I can get anything I want online. So no, it's been great.
I couldn't agree more with you, Kurt. I'm not a big shopper either, and had I made a really big Costco run before all this started, I probably would have been fine. I made a couple trips to the grocery store, but trying to do what you're doing a better job than I applaud you. And so many Americans have done an amazing job staying at home, and that's why yesterday we had the lowest death total here in Oakland County that we've had, in over these 2 months that we've been tracking all this. So. Good job.
No, and I've been really impressed with as we walk around Pleasant Ridge. According to the Oakland County data, we've had 8 cases and 1 death, which is pretty low, and we've seen tremendous adherence to all the governor's her suggestions, and everybody has been maintaining that distance. They've obviously there's some wine parties at 5 o'clock where everybody stays well separated, and everybody seems to be having getting a little stir crazy. Certainly my daughter has 4 children, and that gets a little bit much, and my son has now 2, so I feel sorry for a lot of the parents. You can see them early in the morning, whether it's cold or rainy, they've got their kids out walking the streets just to get them some exercise. So it's great. And the other question was, I'm sitting in my office across from my bedroom, so
excellent.
Very comfortable.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. He is Kurt Metzger, the mayor of Pleasant Ridge, and a former Census Bureau employee. We'll talk more about Pleasant Ridge and small communities in a moment, but let's talk about the census. Really, why we wanted to have you on today, and any thoughts for folks? I mean, everybody should have by now. Virtually everybody received the mailing with the census information, and hopefully a lot of people returned those. But you've been in the middle of all this in the past. Does that? There's a lot of people that probably don't return them and need a little extra help.
Yes, Michigan is doing quite well. tend to in past censuses as well. So Michigan ranks fourth in the country in terms of the response rate, which is extremely good to see. Oakland County is ranking seventh in the state of Michigan, but it's already about almost 75% of households have responded, which is high. I mean, so I'm really pleased. There's quite a bit of variation within the communities. With Huntington Woods, interestingly enough, has led the country since the beginning in terms of response rate, and now is 90.6%.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, you're not going to reach 100 because there's always vacant homes that have to be taken out of the process later on as the census goes on. You'll also find that the thing is there are many parts of the state, particularly the areas that are now opening up for bars and restaurants and other things, the Upper Peninsula and the many counties in the Northern Peninsula, where the Census Bureau does not do that online. What they do, because you don't have necessarily regular addresses, they go through a process called list leave, where they actually will be delivering questionnaires, dropping questionnaires off and recording addresses. Could be a rural route, could be something else, something to identify the home. And so you have counties like Keweenaw County, which has a response rate now of about 19%. Those are people who probably have seen ads, called the Census Bureau, called the 2020 line, maybe went online, but they didn't get that card in the mail that many of us did. And unfortunately, because of COVID, the Census Bureau has now delayed most of their activities 4 months. So they're not sending people out. Some states, as states start to open, Census Bureau starts sending people out to go to homes and do this list leave process. There's also a follow-up process when, at a certain point in time, which would have been now, but has now been delayed several months, the Census Bureau sends people out to homes to addresses from which they have not received either an online response or a questionnaire back in the mail, and to follow up to make sure that they get the response or to identify the home as a vacant home.
Kurt Metzger is joining us. He's a mayor of Pleasant Ridge, former Census Bureau employee, and clearly knows an awful lot about the census. So we appreciate that. So let's just start at the top of the list. Right now, during the coronavirus, the best thing that folks can do is get on a website and fill out the information, because if they haven't done that yet, what you're doing is you're forcing somebody to come knock on your door to get that information. You probably don't want extra people knocking on your door right now, and do you really want to be responsible for somebody to have to come to your house and collect that information when all you got to do is go online and provide it? Wouldn't you want to encourage people to get online and do that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
This is the first census that the Bureau has done an online response. And in fact, maybe it's a great thing that they did, because you can easily go online. Just go to the Census Bureau's website and go online and do it. You can also, if you don't want to do it online, or if you have a problem with that, you can call the Census Bureau and do the interview over the phone and complete it that way. That way you've done your civic duty. Your community will get representation. Your state will get representation, and you won't have anybody knocking on your door bothering you.
So easy, online or on the phone, do that.
Right.
Otherwise, someone's going to come knocking on your door. So go to the Census Bureau website. We have links, by the way, on civiccentertv.com. Right. Really easy to find it. Should people, I know people are told over and over and over again, Kurt Metzger, that this information is not going to tie back to you personally. Anything you reveal about what's going on in your home during the census is just used to collect data. And, people with a questionable immigration status or anything else, they really don't need to worry about providing census information. Is that correct?
That is exactly right. The Census Bureau does have a confidentiality clause, and anybody that works for the Census Bureau, when I did, I had to agree to never release any individual information or share individual information. The Census Bureau doesn't do that. They do have the program that after 72 years, the census forms are sent over to the National Archives so people can do genealogy research. It used to be 72 years was seen as a lifespan, so that most people would have passed by the time the data were available. There's been talk from time to time about extending that time period because people are living longer, but I think it's stayed at 72 years. You do not, and also to emphasize, and I appreciate how much you're up on the census, that the census only has, it's 9 questions. I mean, we're not asking about your income. We're not asking how many toilets you have. We're not asking any of the kinds of information that people get excited about, although they would give any information for a credit card. They don't like to give the information to the government. So it's some very basic in terms of age, gender, your race and ethnicity, and just some really basic questions that are being asked. Takes very little time, and it's so important on so many levels. But yes, the information, what happens is when that information goes in, the Census Bureau publishes data at various levels of geography, but they eliminate all names. So you'll get information for any city, village, or township, for the county as a whole, for the state as a whole, and it actually goes down to your census block, so that information is then used. The counts of people by block are used for the redistricting purposes later on.
Well, it's really important. We got to run, Kurt. I appreciate you taking time with us today. Kurt Metzger, Mayor Pleasant Ridge, and a former Census Bureau employee. I appreciate the information. Let's check in again, because I got to keep reminding people what's going on here. And, I think the one other thing that is a little bit of a challenge this time around is that, yes, they have delayed the process a little bit because of the coronavirus. And, people just, like some people, I'm one of them, they're just going to naturally procrastinate and let everything go to the absolute last second possible.
And just one last thing
Sure.
is so important that the estimate is that for each person represents about $1,800 for the state per year. So, and the census covers a 10-year period. So when that census is taken, those numbers are used for the next 10 years. They're used for federal application of funding. It's so critical that people do fill out the census. And of course, we know that it's going to be used for reapportionment. We expect Michigan is going to lose another congressional seat after the census, but it's very important for people to have their voice and have themselves counted for both money and for political representation.
Well, no question about it. And, and as the population in the city of Detroit declines, too, it's really important for people in Detroit, in every community, to make sure that they are measured and they are counted, because there's certain federal funding programs and other programs that are based on not only the number of people in your community, but just the general size of your community, and that fits into different categories. So really important. So, Kurt, I'm sorry, Kurt, we got to run, but you had one final comment? No, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, unfortunately, Detroit's rate is less than 50% right now.
And
so a lot of work to be done.
So if you know somebody in Detroit, it might want to recommend they get their census done. And for that matter, in any community. Kurt Metzger, thank you for joining us.